Hey traders, Raghee here. Let's get a quick audio and video check in. Should be good to go. Fantastic. Happy Monday, everybody. Hope everyone is doing great. Anyone do anything fun over the weekend? Football has officially started. I'll have plenty of football analogies. All right. I'm trying to think what we watched over the weekend. Oh, Nobody 2. Lots of golf. I like it. Don't chase. Juan, you're sick? Hope you're on the mend, my friend. Lots of golf, football. I like it. We watched Nobody 2. And I'm trying to think. We want to watch Top Gun Maverick for the 400th time. Campfire with the grandsons. Larry, you know how to do it. Oh, man, that's awesome. If it wasn't 95 degrees even at night here in Florida, that might be great. But that sounds beautiful. Alien Earth. All right, Alex. Good to know. Any good books? I picked up, what did I pick up? I picked up a new book over the weekend. I think it's at the other office. So I'm going to get into that this week. All the good stuff. All right, let's see. I did some bookkeeping. I don't know how many of you are doing your trading through an entity. So I know a lot of folks ask me, Rog, what do you do come tax time? Just one of those things we have to do. Trading through an entity. Yeah, so I did some bookkeeping homework over the weekend. Setting up the new home office. I like it. Team roping and 1 second place. Tony, y'all are so much more fun than I am. Excellent. All right, so let's get to it. It's Monday. The bell's going to ring in about 7 minutes. What is the plan? Well, I've sent out a couple links in the alert section of the room. And if you bring your attention over there in the Sector Secrets Mastery room, you'll see one. They're the Raghee notes for the week of September 8th. That is that workflowy link that I share with you all that has all the info in terms of, what I have here running on the left side of the screen. Different hot zones, setups. We're going to have our watch list here a little bit later on here this morning. And Friday? The last session that we had, I'd asked the room, hey, what are some of the challenges that you're facing? And one of the things I'm going to do is I will keep the question anonymous. So don't worry. If you ask me a question in the room and I answer it, you find an answer somewhere in a short or in a video on YouTube or wherever, I will never mention, unless you've done something great and I'm going to brag on you. Even then, I'll always ask for permission. But there are a number of questions that came up Friday, challenges that I'm going to actually put on a separate YouTube channel. And I'm just going to answer them in shorts. And that's something I think, you can ask questions and know that I'm not going to, call you out in the question if it's something like it's embarrassing. All of us have some embarrassing trading habits at the beginning. But I think a lot of folks have the same challenges that many, many other traders have. So I'm going to start answering those. And I'm going to do that probably today because I can just, whip the old phone out, answer a really cool question quickly in a short, and hopefully help a lot of people doing it. So I appreciate everyone sharing what your biggest challenges are, because I promise you, you are not alone in that challenge. All right. So then let's see. We watched Maverick again over the weekend. Cool, BJ. Very cool. Took care of cows, says Matt. I like that. Sounds peaceful. Cows seem very peaceful to me. So with no hot zone aftermath, meaning when I take a look at the Forex Factory calendar and I look at what has already transpired today before 9:30, before even 9:20, we have nothing. And this is not uncommon as we go into the week after non-farm payroll. It's usually pretty darn quiet. Although we do have PPI on Wednesday, we do have CPI on Thursday, but all of a sudden those inflation metrics don't seem to be as important as they were before, because all eyes are on jobs, right? All of a sudden everything turned away from the CPI and the PCE and all these different inflation metrics to, oh my gosh, do Americans have jobs, right? What's the unemployment rate? Are people working? And relatedly, consumer confidence numbers will be important. And relatedly, different retail sales metrics, as well as new home sales, things like that are going to be important as well. So we're turning our attention to, are people employed and are they spending their money? And that's where the Federal Reserve has taken the attention to. And if you're wondering, okay, Rog, what does that mean at the end of the day? Why do we care? Because at the end of the day, the idea is we are going to see a rate cut in 9 days. And we're likely, right now, based on the data that we have, we're likely to see rate cuts potentially at the remaining, after September 17th, at the remaining 2 meetings. All right. That's the macro. Macro can be easily distilled to one idea. What is the Federal Reserve going to do? Period. Because all the different data is what we look at to determine what they might do. So why not look at something that distills all that into what the most probable outcome is? All right, so let's take a look at our indices here this morning. Pre-market, what do we got? All four of the indices are above the PSC, the previous session close, that line in the sand that tells us wherever we ended the day on Friday, are we above or below that? And to look at that is to look at whether people look at the current session and where price is as positive or negative. There's got to be some line, right? Because we can't use zero. There's got to be some line in terms of the value of an index as to whether or not we deem that positive or negative. And that line in the sand is the previous session close. So when we see that we're above it, generally I'm going to want to be bullish. Now, sadly, I say sadly because it is somewhat unfortunate, but sadly, we're not seeing that previous session close, which is way down here, below support levels that I would like to see. So in a case like this, when I've got all 4 of the indices above the previous session close, by the way, so are bonds. And we'll talk about the long position in bonds that we have in the long-term account growth conversation. We'll talk about that. Bond, silver, gold, heck, even crude are above the previous session close. But I like bond, silver, gold the most. And it does have bullish Momo. A couple things to like there. I would say all 3 of those would be valid for hourly price movement range HPMR setups. So all of those I like for a move down to the green zone of the hourly price movement range. Where are my drawing tools? What's a morning without drawing tools? There we go. Okay. So this is what I'm waiting for right down in here. And in terms of the structure, bullish momentum, neutral trend. Green on top, gray on the bottom, bullish momentum, neutral trend. And that's definitely something worth keeping an eye on going into the morning. Bell's going to ring in about 30 seconds. Something similar with silver. You can see silver's got a similar setup. So there's the green zone, and the previous session closes below. So if you're wondering, Rog, what do you like? If this is my support zone and the previous session close, which is that line in the sand, is down in here, love that. That's exactly the kind of alignment we'd like. The only thing that I could say that would make it even more perfect is if instead of bullish momentum, we had bullish momentum and bullish trend. You can see the trend is neutral. But if I were to try to put a check in every box, an uptrend would be great, but this is everything we would want minus the uptrend. Okay, so there's the bell. And we are going to look for those 9:30 candles of unusual size. So just at between 9:30 and 9:35. Take a breath, right? Deep breath, and look for those candles of unusual size. They're not unusual to see a candle of unusual size, not at all. Ultimately, what we're looking for is price action to settle down after the first 5 minutes. And if they print large candles on a Monday, after the weekend, we're not going to be surprised. If you want to know, okay, Rob, what does that look like? Yes, exactly. K-Dub, fantastic. Exactly. What does that look like? Candle of unusual size. There you go. Look at the 5 candles that preceded the open, right? That's the opening candle, right? No, it's not the opening candle. There you go, 9:30. Actually, we had a 9:25. Things started to wake up at 9:25. Holy cow. But this is your candle of unusual size right here on the bell at 9:30. Yep, Dow getting shellacked. That's a 100-point move in the Dow. Now, granted, it's a 45,500 point index, but that's still a 100-point move. And gosh, less than 2 minutes. That is what we're talking about on the open. So let's talk about time some more. Deep breath. Look for those candles of unusual size. 9:35 to about 9:40. What are we going to expect? Timing matters with trading, right? Timing in terms of the time of day. 9:35 to 9:40. Volume coming in and spreads. I like to use the word normalize or narrow. They start to normalize because as the trade's coming in, the bid and the ask, rather than being so far apart, the bid and ask come together a little bit, and that's important. That's important. What else are we going to see by about 9:40 to 9:45? We'll get a look at early sector and stock clarity. What's moving with what? What are indices doing? After that first 10 to 15 minutes, we'll get the first 15-minute range in terms of movement right off the bat. Go lay down, puppy. Go lay down. I'll let you out a little bit later. The pup's in the house. I wish y'all could see her. Go lay down. Not yet. So we know that's happening. And then around 9:45, we know we can start looking at a little bit better an understanding of what it is that the morning might want to do. Now, for some people, those opening candles are a reason to get in right away. That's never been something for me. Just because the market's now open doesn't mean that everything hasn't been moving before that. So when we say the market, well, the stock market is open. Futures have been trading. Forex has been trading. All those different markets have been already moving for hours before the bell rings on Wall Street. If you want to trade things before 9:30, do it starting around 7. So I get this question a lot while we're waiting for a setup. Pre-market, do you trade it, Raghee? Do I trade it around 7 a.m. Eastern? I will look at the pre-market, and that'll be futures. If I'm going to do anything, it'll be around 7, right? But then we have another day, if you will, starting at 9:30. It might as well be 2 different days, to be quite frank. All right. So if gold can get a little bit lower, I'm open to that. Do we have any trends that are organizing in the interim? No. Dow is heading lower. NASDAQ's heading higher. All right. So here by 9:34, I already know that Dow is lower. NAS is higher. Both are making significant moves. Dow is making a lower low on the morning, and the NAS is making a higher high on the morning. And that means mixed markets. That means, right? That means leave ES alone until, well, just leave it alone for now. You might say, until what, Rog? Until either the Dow and the NAS start moving together or we see clarity in one or the other. So for example, if the NASDAQ really starts to climb, continuing to make higher highs, eventually the Dow might start moving with it, and eventually the S&Ps might start moving with it. But the S&P is going to be more sensitive to the NASDAQ. And if there is a buying opportunity, as long as there's a flat Dow and a strong NAS, That's possibly something we could do. But yeah, I'll tell you what, for as much overemphasis as there is on the S&P, most of the time it's the Dow and the NASDAQ that we want to look at first, that we want to understand first, right? So there's the NAS. We already looked at the Dow. There it is, quite heavy, right? Trying to recover. But what's the S&P going to do with that? NAS is moving higher, Dow is moving lower. What is it to do? It doesn't know what to do. Look at it. Just kind of sort of up. Wicks are all over the place. Why? Because it's getting pulled in two different directions. I would usually make a bet on the ES moving with the NASDAQ. It has more in common. I would definitely do that. All right. So what else am I looking for? I need a little weakness. I'd like to see price above the previous session close. And right now, the NAS is probably the best setup for that. So if I'm going to do anything on the NASDAQ here this morning, let me start looking at NQ. My fingers are not ready to type this morning. So I'm watching on NQ, unless a trend organizes, 20. This is going to keep moving as we make higher highs. But I'm going to be looking for the green zone, HPMR green zone. HPMR green zone. What does that mean? The support zone based on volatility and time. So between 9 and 10 o'clock, this green box down here is showing me where volatility-based support is. If you can get down there, I'm your huckleberry. Same thing, by the way, with the bond and silver market as well. Same thing with both of those. All right, cool. Let's see. GDX. Yeah, interesting, because gold is not that weak, is it? And what's up with GDX? Yeah, wow. You know, look, that's a lot more volatility than I would presume gold should be triggering. Now, remember, GDX and including XME are a little bit more sensitive to the Dow, aren't they? So whenever we look at metals and mining, XME, and whenever we look at GDX, gold miners, remember, they're going to be a little bit more sensitive to the Dow. I don't see that much weakness in gold, so they're certainly not in sync, right? Jeremy, good eye. Good eye. I would just be cautious because it does seem to be moving with the Dow, which probably has a little bit more influence on this group. So you can see the first 15 minutes or so are really about filtering what seems to be moving with clarity, what seems to be having some underlying synchronicity with price action. And here at 938, I can go ahead and start to look at a few sectors. We've got XLV in a downtrend, KRE in a downtrend, and XLP. So if we're going to look at weakness, that's the place to look. But as far as any kind of strength, because we still are above the previous session close, tech has bullish momentum. Semis, consumer discretionary, so that has bullish Momo. And then the loan uptrend, we'll see if it can hang in there. Seems to be transports. So right here, right in front of 940, I already have the price action trying to normalize and pick a direction. We can see if any trends have organized. And it looks to be most of the trends are organizing at the sector level. Things are pretty heavy because the Dow's pretty heavy. So I say things meaning in GDX and SPY and XME. Dow's yanking a lot of things lower. Russell's yanking the regional banks lower with it. Boom. Okay. So we'll see what we've got. And then what we'll do as well is see if we can find some trends at the stock level. And that's what we'll start to do now. All right. So are there trends at the stock level? We see a few in the sector level. So if there are any trends to be had, could it be things like Procter & Gamble or Coke? In staples, which is weak, utilities, could it be NEE or XLU? Could it be Dominion, Southern, things like that? Because again, utilities are weak. When it comes to transports, could it be some of the airlines overlapping? Could it be Uber? Some of those names. Could we have some strength in that group? Look at Uber moving higher. What about UAL? Not so much. DAL. So notice what I'm looking at is not my favorite group of stocks. It's not even my favorite group of swing trading stocks. It's what stocks right now are moving with the broader averages. If I want to be bullish, here's another way to look at it. If I want to be bullish, I'm going to focus on really the NAS or tech-related names. I'm going to be bearish. Again, if I'm going to set up long put setups, I'm going to look at the Dow. I'm going to look at the Russell in terms of the indices. Right. So if I'm going to look at a sector, I'm going to go up to the top of the group and go from there. So if I want to be bearish, now do I want to be bearish, Russell? Yeah. KW mentioned that it's at the green zone, but remember it's below the previous session close, right? So I don't mind to look for a buying opportunity. I really don't. But the challenge is going to be, if I am going to look for a buying opportunity, can I do it? Can I do it a little bit lower? Right, that would be one thing I could look at. And another thing you can look at is wait for a signal. If you want to be more aggressive than the middle of the range up in here, can you get a signal from an oversold signal down in here? Can you get a support level, meaning we get that small arrow? You know, we could look for a signal. And that's one thing we could look at if you don't want to wait for the middle of the range. Some kind of confirmation. We would definitely want it to be neutral, not in a downtrend, and with a nice oversold. So yeah, we'll take a look at that as well. All right, so this gives us a good direction to start moving in. Let's see what this morning brings. All right.